Royal author and Prince Harry's biographer Angela Levin. And if you thought the royal race row scam had finally been forgotten about, think again. Rumours now circulating.
The world's most talked about royal couple suddenly goes radio silent on the one day they should be celebrating? And what if that silence isn't peaceful, but suffocating, hiding something far darker than anyone imagined? Prince Harry and Meghan Markle once painted themselves as rebels breaking free from ancient chains. But now those same chains are pulling them back into a scandal so explosive it could shake the very throne they walked away from. When royal commentator Angela Levin stepped forward with claims that cut straight to the heart of their carefully crafted image, the gloves came off. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind the fury, the fear, and the future of two children caught in the crossfire of royal chaos. The anniversary that never was. Here's something nobody expected: complete radio silence. When Harry and Meghan's wedding anniversary rolled around, the world waited.
Lucky people are guests at the wedding reception for Prince Harry and his wife, that never gets old, his wife Meghan. Earlier, as you know, they gathered in St. George's Chapel to witness a wedding ceremony.
Cameras ready, headlines prepared, social media buzzing with anticipation for the usual glamorous display. Perhaps a Netflix-style photo collection, or maybe one of those perfectly timed interviews where they'd remind everyone how brave they are. Instead, nothing happened. Not a single word. No touching tribute from the palace, no glossy magazine spread, not even a casual post from their celebrity circle trying to keep the fairy tale alive. The couple who once commanded global attention like seasoned performers suddenly became invisible. Meghan, who'd mastered the art of staying relevant, couldn't even pull together a simple anniversary post. Harry, the prince who traded his heritage for what he called freedom, looked more like someone stuck in a corner he didn't know how to escape. The woman who marketed herself as royalty's disruptor went completely dark. The man who once charmed the world now seemed lost in his own story. Their silence wasn't dignified. It screamed discomfort. For two people who built an empire on sharing their pain, their love, their struggles with anyone holding a microphone, this sudden disappearance felt deliberate, like they were hiding from something they couldn't spin into another victimhood narrative. The world that once hung on their every word now found itself staring at an empty stage. And that emptiness set the perfect scene for what came next, a reckoning they never saw coming. When Angela Levin spoke, the ground shook. Angela Levin isn't some random tabloid writer throwing mud at the wall hoping something sticks. She spent years studying the royals, understanding their moves, reading between their carefully rehearsed lines. So when she opened her mouth about Harry and Meghan's children, people didn't just listen, they leaned in hard. Her words weren't vague suggestions or conspiracy theories. They were pointed, specific, and aimed directly at the foundation of everything the Sussex brand stands on. Levin raised questions millions had been whispering but never dared say out loud. Questions about Archie and Lilibet's origins, about why so many traditional royal protocols were suddenly tossed aside, about why transparency became the enemy when it used to be the couple's favorite weapon. She didn't attack with emotion. She questioned with experience, and that made it devastating. Because when someone who knows the royal playbook inside and out starts asking why the rules were broken, people pay attention. The timing made it worse. Harry and Meghan were already bleeding credibility after failed business ventures and broken promises to their media partners. Their brand of victimhood was wearing thin, and public sympathy was running on empty. Then Levin stepped in and turned their biggest asset, their children, into their biggest liability. She suggested what careful observers had already noticed. The story around these kids didn't add up. Hospital visits that never happened, birth announcements that broke centuries of tradition, photos that looked staged rather than spontaneous. Levin framed it simply. Without proper royal bloodline confirmation, those children can't hold legitimate positions in succession. That's not an opinion, that's constitutional fact. And suddenly, the couple who demanded privacy while selling their story at every turn found themselves backed into a corner they couldn't charm their way out of. She didn't need to accuse them of anything specific. She just had to ask the right questions, and the silence that followed spoke louder than any confession. What made Levin's bombshell truly dangerous wasn't the accusation itself. It was how it forced everyone to remember all the odd moments they'd brushed aside before. The baby bump that seemed to shift shapes, the secretive hospital arrangements, the refusal to follow basic royal birth protocols that every other member had honored. Suddenly, those weren't just quirky choices by a modern couple. They looked like pieces of a puzzle nobody wanted to complete, and Levin had just handed people the missing edge pieces. Harry's fury and the legal threats that backfired. You'd think a man with nothing to hide would simply provide proof and move on. Instead, Prince Harry exploded. Not with evidence, not with calm explanations, but with legal threats fired off like missiles aimed at anyone questioning his narrative. The moment Levin's words hit the public, Harry's lawyers weren't far behind. Threats of lawsuits, promises of legal action, warnings about defamation, all the classic moves of someone who wants to control the story, not clarify it. But here's where it gets interesting. Every threat Harry threw only made people more suspicious. Because when you're innocent, you don't hide behind lawyers, you show the receipts. A confident father would have calmly presented documentation, hospital records, anything to shut down speculation permanently. Harry instead chose the route that screams one thing: panic. He looked less like a protective parent and more like a celebrity caught in a lie during a press conference, frantically trying to change the subject. Meghan, his supposed partner in all things, vanished during this critical moment. The woman who built her image on being outspoken and fearless suddenly had nothing to say. She let Harry swing alone in the wind, his anger making him look weaker by the day. Every furious statement, every legal warning, every attempt to silence critics only added fuel to the fire. Because the public isn't stupid, they know that truth doesn't need protection. Only lies do. The cruel irony is that Harry positioned himself as the victim of press intrusion his entire life. He blamed media for destroying his relationships, for making his life miserable, for driving him out of the country he was born to serve. Yet the second someone asked legitimate questions about his own family, he weaponized those same legal systems he claimed were corrupt. The hypocrisy was staggering, and it didn't go unnoticed. Legal threats don't kill rumors, they fertilize them. Each angry response from Harry confirmed what people suspected. He's terrified of real scrutiny, not tabloid gossip, but actual investigation into facts he can't manipulate. His fury wasn't the righteous anger of a wronged man. It was the desperation of someone watching his carefully constructed image crumble in real time. And the more he threatened, the more people wanted answers he refused to give. The DNA question nobody can ignore. 3 letters became the center of everything. DNA. Simple, scientific, undeniable. One test could end every whisper, silence every critic, shut down every conspiracy theory permanently. Yet Harry and Meghan treat it like poison. They dance around it, avoid it, act like the very suggestion is beneath them. But their refusal isn't noble, it's telling. Because if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear from the truth. The spotlight intensified, particularly around Lilibet. Named after the late queen herself, meant to symbolize connection to tradition and heritage, she instead became the focal point of doubt. Royal watchers, journalists, even people who defended the couple before started asking uncomfortable questions. Was Lilibet actually born from Meghan? Or is she another carefully managed piece of the Sussex PR machine? The possibility alone was enough to shake the line of succession because bloodline isn't negotiable in monarchy. It's everything. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace found itself in an impossible position. They couldn't publicly question the children's parentage without causing constitutional crisis, but they also couldn't ignore the growing demands for proof. The institution that Harry claimed was so cruel to him now had to protect the legitimacy he put at risk. Every day without clear answers made the palace look either complicit or powerless. Neither option was good. What infuriated people most wasn't the questions themselves. It was Harry and Meghan's attitude about them. They acted offended that anyone would dare ask, as if demanding transparency from royals who live off taxpayer-funded titles was somehow unreasonable. They wanted all the privilege of royal status with none of the accountability that comes with it. That's not modernizing the monarchy. That's exploiting it. Commentators who once gave them the benefit of the doubt started demanding proof. Not gossip, not staged family photos with conveniently hidden faces, but cold, hard evidence. Birth certificates, hospital records, medical documentation, the basic paperwork every royal birth had produced for centuries. The Sussex response? More silence, more deflection, more victim narratives that nobody was buying anymore. Every refusal to provide simple proof made the suspicion grow deeper. The DNA question became symbolic of everything wrong with Harry and Meghan's approach. They want to be royals when it benefits them. Fancy titles, global platform, automatic credibility, but they want to be private citizens when accountability comes knocking. That cherry-picking doesn't work. Either you're in the system and follow its rules, or you're out and lose the privileges. Trying to have both makes you look like con artists running a sophisticated scam. Breaking every rule and paying the price. Royal births follow a pattern older than most nations. The mother appears publicly, the child is presented, the nation celebrates, and transparency reigns because the public has a stake in the monarchy's future. Kate Middleton understood this. Despite exhaustion, despite the chaos of new motherhood, she stood on those hospital steps 3 times and fulfilled her duty. It wasn't about vanity.
The Duchess of Cambridge stepped out with her new son in her arms, the little man oblivious to the fuss all around him. Any predictions that there would be less interest in the arrival of Prince William and Kate's 3rd child?
It was about trust, about showing the people who fund the monarchy that nothing was being hidden. Meghan threw all of that in the trash. Instead of transparency, she gave everyone smoke and mirrors, secret hospital arrangements, photos released on their timeline with their chosen angles, a baby bump that seemed to follow its own physics. It felt less like a royal birth and more like a reality show reveal episode where everything's scripted for maximum drama. Harry stood next to her, grinning through it all, seemingly oblivious to how bizarre the whole production looked. People noticed every inconsistency. The lack of proper medical announcements, the missing photos that every other royal mother had provided, the strange timing of reveals, and the carefully controlled imagery that hid more than it showed. These gaps didn't just raise eyebrows, they created fertile ground for every theory imaginable. Surrogacy rumors, questions about moon bumps, speculation about whether the children were even biologically theirs. And the couple's refusal to address any of it only made things worse. Meghan sold herself as authentic, as someone who'd bring honesty to an institution she claimed was full of lies. Instead, she became the face of artificiality. Every carefully staged moment, every controlled narrative, every time she demanded privacy while courting publicity made her look like a hypocrite. Harry, who'd spent years mocking conspiracy theories about his family, now starred in one of his own making. The irony was almost too perfect. By abandoning tradition, they didn't modernize anything. They destroyed trust. Monarchy survives on an unspoken contract. The royals get privilege, the public gets transparency. Break that contract, and the whole thing collapses. Every secret choice, every broken protocol, every refusal to follow basic expectations became evidence in a case they were building against themselves. They thought they were being revolutionary. Instead, they just looked guilty. The empire crumbling in real time. This is where the personal becomes political, where gossip transforms into genuine crisis. Meghan and Harry didn't just break etiquette, they cracked the foundation of royal legitimacy itself. Monarchy isn't built on personality or popularity. It's built on bloodline, on an unbroken chain of verifiable succession. By clouding their children's origins in mystery, they put that entire system at risk. And that's not just their problem, it's Britain's problem. Meghan, who paraded herself as the future of royalty, now looks like its potential destroyer. Her silence isn't strategic, it's incriminating. Every time she refuses to speak, people don't see dignity, they see guilt. Harry, born into privilege but never carrying its weight, now appears as a liability to the crown he was born to support. His tantrums don't project strength. They show a man protecting something fragile, something that can't withstand scrutiny. The longer they dodge transparency, the more the whispers solidify into accepted belief. This stopped being about two children somewhere in California. It became about whether the British monarchy can survive with heirs whose legitimacy is questioned at every turn. That shadow doesn't just follow Harry and Meghan, it haunts the throne itself. Every time someone mentions Archie or Lilibet, the unspoken question hangs in the air. Are they really who we're told they are? Angela Levin didn't just drop her bombshell and disappear. She twisted the knife with a warning that should terrify the Sussexes. If Harry drags this into court, she suggested, the outcome could destroy him. Because courtrooms don't respect celebrity status or royal titles. They demand evidence, medical records, documentation, and yes, DNA. For a couple addicted to controlling their narrative, the thought of a judge forcing truth into daylight must be their worst nightmare. But Levin hinted at something even more dangerous. She has more. Information she hasn't released yet, ammunition held in reserve. While Harry swings wildly at anyone questioning him, the real damage happens in plain sight. Media companies that once fought for Sussex contracts are backing away. Credibility is evaporating. The golden couple of Montecito is starting to look like a bad investment nobody wants to touch. Their business empire is collapsing as fast as their reputation. Meghan, who styled herself as Hollywood royalty, finds doors closing that used to swing open automatically. Harry, who thought his royal name guaranteed influence forever, is discovering it guarantees nothing when people stop believing your story. Levin's warning wasn't just personal. It was a preview of their complete unraveling. If truth comes out in court, they won't just lose face, they'll lose everything they built on sand. The constitutional time bomb nobody can defuse. At the center of this storm sits an uncomfortable truth. The future of Archie and Lilibet isn't just a family drama. It's a constitutional crisis waiting to explode. Monarchies live and die on bloodline. It's why kings rise, queens rule, and dynasties survive centuries. Without clear, verifiable lineage, every title those Sussex children hold becomes a question mark. And a monarchy built on questions cannot stand. Meghan, who branded herself as the crown's modern savior, now looks like the person actively undermining it. Her silence isn't noble or protective. It's calculated avoidance that reeks of someone hiding uncomfortable truth. Harry, once the cheeky prince the world adored, has reduced himself to a man raging at shadows, throwing threats instead of providing answers. He doesn't look strong or protective. He looks terrified. And nothing is more dangerous to the crown than a prince who seems afraid of basic transparency. If Parliament ever gets forced to intervene, and that possibility grows more real every day, the fallout won't just scar Harry and Meghan. It could destabilize the entire institution. Imagine DNA tests, medical cross-examinations, and legal proceedings dragging royal mystique into harsh courtroom lighting. The damage would be irreparable, not just to two people, but to centuries of tradition that millions still respect. One simple test could shut this entire scandal down immediately. One swab, one undeniable result, one moment of transparency that proves the doubters wrong. Yet Harry and Meghan treat that option like it would destroy them. They act as if truth itself is their enemy. Maybe that's because deep down, they know exposure would erase whatever credibility they still desperately cling to. Their refusal to provide simple proof speaks volumes, and none of it sounds innocent. The tragedy is that they did this to themselves. Nobody forced them to abandon protocol. Nobody made them choose secrecy over transparency. Nobody demanded they break every tradition and then act offended when people asked why. They created this mess through arrogance, through believing they were smarter than the system they were born into. Now, that system is demanding accountability they're not prepared to give. So where does this leave us? Watching two people who thought they could rewrite royal history instead become cautionary tales about what happens when privilege meets delusion. Harry and Meghan wanted to be revolutionaries, but they're ending up as footnotes, examples of how quickly influence evaporates when trust disappears. Their children, innocent in all this, carry names linked to the crown, but futures clouded by their parents' choices. The real question now isn't whether they'll recover, it's whether the damage they've caused can be contained before it spreads further. Angela Levin lit a fire that's burning through carefully constructed lies. Harry's fury only adds oxygen to those flames. Meghan's silence looks more like admission with each passing day. And the monarchy they once belonged to watches carefully, knowing that how this ends will define more than just one family's legacy. If this story shocked you, you're not alone. The Sussex saga keeps getting darker, and we're here to break down every twist as it happens. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next, because something tells us this scandal is far from over. Drop a comment telling us what you think. Should Harry and Meghan finally provide the proof everyone's demanding, or is the damage already beyond repair? Let's talk about it. And if you made it this far, thank you for staying with us through this wild ride. We'll see you in the next one, where we uncover even more truth the mainstream media won't touch.